right?
Oh, now it says live. Okay, real
Yeah,
live.
now it's live. Yeah.
Real live.
Can you feel it?
Again, it's electric.
I'll just open Twitch just to see if things are. Oh, there we go. It's not confusing with the delay at all. So yeah, I think the way this Twitch thing works is you have to hang around a bit and wait for people to come in the door.
Oh,
So there's this is a section we're doing some bantering
okay.
before
So it's
actually
casual
getting into
chat.
stuff. Yeah. So how is the weather like?
Suboptimal. It's 8 degrees today.
8 degrees, and that's Celsius, right?
It is Celsius. It's actually not too bad. That's balmy for
Yeah.
this part of the country at this time of the year.
Celsius is the best degree, I would say.
It is. It is. I think it's true that Fahrenheit is the best temperature system, or the best metric for measuring human comfort, but nothing else. Like, because 0 degrees Celsius you're cold, and 100 degrees Celsius you're dead.
Yeah.
But 100 Fahrenheit you're warm, and 0 Fahrenheit you're cold. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Should we, like, meta? Should we post in the remix Discord that we are doing this?
I don't see why not. I saw we got a sanity question in the remix Discord earlier.
Yeah, I was
Let's
pinged.
get this thing going.
What is the appropriate channel to post this thing in?
Showcase?
Showcase? Maybe? Random?
Probably not events? Oh, you posted in events there the other day.
Yeah, I can see
events. Going to spray lots of channels with.
I think they removed events after that. They're just like, no,
it's still there. And Kent even gave you the party parrot. I'm going to give you one too.
I can't see it. Why can't I see it? Meetups. Is it?
No, there's events. Just 2 below that.
Oh, I had it collapsed,
like,
so I only saw the unread. Yeah. We're live. Point
Yay.
up. Then link. Boom. Right. I can see people coming in. Hi,
Welcome.
chat. Welcome. Where are you watching from? That's the question one asks from the Twitch chat, right?
Yes, you've got more experience than I do at this.
Yeah, barely.
Now we're watching Twitch chat, are we? Because we've got 0 viewers on the Twitch chat.
We have 6 people watching.
Oh, okay. My app just was like slow to update.
Yeah.
This is compelling content, though.
Yeah, this is what people are bought tickets for, right?
I'd give up my Thursday evening to watch this.
So it depends on where you're watching from, right? Because this is Thursday morning for me, because I'm streaming from the West Coast of the United States of America.
Well, look, somebody in the chat has given up their Thursday evening, and for that we're grateful.
We are. So yeah, so we are going to look at remix today, and it's kind of like it's there's an occasion, because I feel I should contextualize this a bit. I also realized I should have added Netlify in the tweet. That's not too late.
We've got people over there, don't we?
Yeah. Let's do the awkward thing. Should tweet live on. Okay, let's do it.
Dangerous.
Yeah. Let's do the thing where we quote tweet the company account. This is exciting content. Like this is how it works.
See how the sausage is made. This is DevRel 101, and you're learning from the very best. If you have given up your Thursday evening to watch this stream, I want you to know You've come to watch a master at work.
Our live stream talking about Netlify, and yeah, there we go. Dusty.domains campaign and take.
You're going to add remix in that one too?
Of course. Campaign and taking. Is this syntactically
taking or talking? Taking a closer look. Yeah.
At remix.run.
Bam.
Ice.
Look at that engagement. You're on Slack.
Let's see. Doesn't this work? No, it's, of course, we have to be on brand.
Yep, bingo.
And then call to action is this. Right, there we go.
Oh, you cool. Like to live dangerously typing that URL. I'm an only copy URLs type of person.
And I don't trust copying URLs. Suddenly there's like a Unicode character that takes you to a mischievous site or something.
True, somebody's UTM code on the end.
I always transcribe my domains. So yeah, Dusty domains. What are your Dusty domains, Simeon?
I thought I had a good one because I had an app idea. There's all these people who've got app ideas. I genuinely don't often, but I almost embarked on building a harvest competitor there a while ago, and I like
the project management tool,
weekend job. It had I think it still had a genuinely interesting hook, but it was going to be Paceline. It's going to be called, and I had Paceline.app, and I was pretty happy with that. But that was so long ago now, I think that domain's actually expired. So if somebody else wants Paceline.app, it is all yours.
Yeah. I had kind of like a domain purge a couple of years ago. Just like, I'm not going to pay for all this.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of like, I'm now collecting domains on behalf of sanity. So an Acronym.dev were one of them. That just
actually,
like,
as an aside, I'm doing kind of the opposite. I'm actually selling the domain that I used to do business under in Australia, and it's actually a very sentimental thing. I've got the email sitting there in my inbox to tell this purchaser that they're going to buy my old business name, and I just can't bring myself to reply with the final yes. So it's tough to love something and let it go. So
yeah, I will not challenge you to do that at the end of this stream. That will be cruel, right? But also maybe appropriate. I don't know. But
Acronym.dev.
Acronym, from the chat. So Martin, our esteemed DevRel colleague, says that I owned avoidpet.com for a while. It was recommended to me because I own duckdog.com. That sounds like kind of like an alternative search engine. Duckdog.com.
Avoid pet.
Wow. Yeah.
Don't type in any of these URLs on the stream.
Yeah. I've also been part of buying like a domain from a domain shark and transferring $50,000 for kind of like brand.com thing. That was to kind of like a domain shark in Japan. That was super like nerve-wracking to say the least, but it worked out.
Yeah, my fingers were crossed there the other day that Facebook was going to rename themselves Tomorrow, which was the URL that I used to have there. So that didn't happen. So
yeah. All right. So Dusty domains. Domains we have bought, we haven't done anything with. So Netlify thought that it would be a good idea to create some incentive, I guess. So they made this. It's pretty cool actually. So like you do this, you kind of create something for that domain, and Netlify will sponsor, like donate to charity. So it's kind of like if I'm not 100% sure of I understand the mechanics of this, but like if you submit a thing, I think they will kind of like match something for your submission, and if you win, it's kind of like your site that kind of like gives that money to the thing. So I'm like, it's for charity. It's good. Let's do it.
Excellent.
And then,
yes.
Yeah.
TLDR charity.
Yeah. And then some awesome companies also chipped in with somewhat significant amount of money. So there's already 100K in the pot, which will be given to some awesome charities. These ones, to be specific, all about bringing people into tech and coding. So so yeah, and I don't think we can submit Acronym that, like, since we are kind of like partners here, but if you do submit a thing, you have this panel of rather awesome judges who will look at the stuff, and then you get listed on this thing. It's a pretty fun design. This
that is fun.
Yeah. And this is a kind of like a perfect occasion to do some fun stuff. You can also do serious stuff, but you can also do fun stuff. Which takes us to some fun stuff we have been doing the last week. So yeah, let's see if I can find it. Boom. Right. So I promise we are here to talk about Remix. What is Remix? First of all, that was a question to you, Simeon.
Sorry. Remix is the latest JavaScript framework, which is just excellent, and it's primarily React. Well, it's only React at the moment, but then did you see that on Twitter the other day that maybe they're looking at Preact support, and maybe React's not going to be the only thing, because I think it's at its core, what do they say? It's just a request handler. So it's not hard to imagine that you could just return view, or there's like people returning videos or returning images, but essentially it's trying to go back to an older model of server side rendered, or at least the server handles the response, right? Which is like how websites have always been. I think it's going to be interesting for when you got into tech, right? Because if you only started building websites in the last few years, statically generated sites is all you might actually know. Where if you came in a bit before that, even if you were building WordPress websites like myself, that servers rendered everything. And now we're there again, but with serverless functions. Your server is it's not a single point of failure in a single location anymore, but you've got a globally distributed servers that are generating these pages. And it does this really wild thing where when you make a change on your website is updated. And that's the killer app. That's the killer feature compared to those in its class of cohort. But yes, it will. Your website will update when you change something.
Yeah, like instantly. Right.
You might have to blow out the Cloudflare cache or something, but other than that, it'll update.
Which is both scary and fun.
Well, it is, because like the publish button means something again. Like I've got that with my blog at the moment, like because I think you got to run roughshod with statically generated because you could hit publish and nothing mattered because it wasn't until you deployed the site. But now, like my finger hovers over the publish button, like I just can't be reckless anymore.
It's like I think Gmail does this now. Like you have kind of like a grace period where you can like undo. You can like before it's actually sent, but like
you could build that document action insanity.
Yeah, that's true.
Debounced publish button.
Interesting idea. I bet we will have that.
Timer.
but with Jams, like you had kind of like that grace period because like your site is rebuilding and it's installing all the node modules again and so on. So you can kind of like opt out. But this is just instant. Which is we can talk more about that, but it's also interesting that Remix, it's kind of like it is TypeScript default. It feels like I guess you can do just JavaScript as well, but they're kind of like leaning you towards TypeScript, which makes sense when everything is kind of live.
It's the most that I feel have felt pushed towards TypeScript. But I don't think it's a prerequisite, and it's tough because like that demo code right there, that's all JavaScript. And I'm finding this at the moment, personally, writing a lot of tutorials, is that I really do actually, for the first time in my life, I really do want to use TypeScript. But as somebody who's only just come to that conclusion, I would hate to try and read tutorials in TypeScript. So it's a tough spot for educational material, I think.
It is. We definitely start to feel that, but it's still kind of, it feels like early days TypeScript. It's actually kind of not, but yeah, I saw that Deno. So this Deno is kind of like the reimagined Node thing, which is TypeScript native. They just joined some consortium and so on. So it feels like TypeScript is here to stay, obviously, and we are probably going to need to learn it.
It's that thing where, and I know we don't have 1,000 viewers, but if
I think you maybe, not sure if it's me or you, but you just froze, Simeon. Super cliffhanger. Let's see if we can get Simeon back. Yeah, he probably needs to restart his browser and join. Let's see. There he is. I will. All right.
I don't know.
That wouldn't happen if you have to use TypeScript for StreamYard, right?
I was going to say something positive, and I feel like Microsoft cut my Wi-Fi or something. No, it's the FOMO thing, right? Where I think you might feel like that you're missing out because you didn't learn TypeScript 5 years ago. But it's like all this stuff. If you wait long enough, sort of the curve comes around, and I think it's probably easier than ever to get into. So if you're only getting into it now, maybe this is just like post-justification for myself and yourself, but I feel like now is the easiest time to get in, where you could have got in earlier and it would have been more uphill. It's my personal theory.
It's a good time, and what's good with TypeScript is you can kind of like, you can keep it fairly simple in the start. It's kind of like this, what the fancy word is, progressive disclosure, right? You can get pretty fancy with TypeScript, but you don't have to. And you can use it at the stage. It's pretty similar if you did React props types. It's kind of like the same thing almost.
That's what I'm using it as a replacement for. Yeah, I want to know what shape the object is. That's TypeScript to me.
And you want VS Code to shout at you when you're doing the wrong data type, right?
And I also want to ignore some of those red lines and just deploy anyway. If it's so complex, I can't be bothered fixing it. Like
exactly. There's the any escape hatch, I guess.
Yeah, where like Deno will just like not compile. If you can't satisfy its conditions, at least, with my personal blog, if you want to, it's publicly available code. You want to pull that in and watch those red lines fly.
Right. Let's, I guess a bit of more context before we dive into the code part of this, which is pretty exciting. So Acronym.dev is kind of like, it's on the tin. It explains acronyms, what they mean. We use a lot of acronyms all the time. It's not always obvious for people what they mean. Sometimes they mean different things. Like you thought you knew, or what does CSS mean? Do you know?
Cascading Style Sheets?
Sure. Most of the times, but turns out it can also mean content scrambling system. Do you remember that?
No, never.
It's back in the days when we had DVDs.
This feels like an open AI thing.
Yeah, and DVDs. And DVDs, they weren't on the blockchain, so you could actually rip them, and then they tried to prevent you from ripping them. And then we figured out how we could get past that. It's not as much in use anymore for some reason, but yeah.
DVDs or the content scrambling system?
I guess both. I can't remember the last time I actually put a DVD into something. I'm not a gamer, so there we go. Martin is adding abbreviations and initialisms. Like those words are also used kind of like mixed and so on. If you're a pedant, you can go into the comment section and tell us how we are wrong.
I've always had it explained that initialisms are letterized like this, like CSS, but then acronyms are like NATO. They become words on their own. But then I've never really found any proof for that assertion. I've just heard that before.
Like ARPANET feels like an acronym, right? Or
yes,
ASCII, maybe like sometimes initialisms becomes acronyms. So this is just future proofing. Like,
well, grok is an acronym, but you would never say API for API.
API. Oh, I would know. I think
maybe we should start. Yeah.
Or GROQ.
It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. So you have this list of things. It kind of like gives you an explanation. There's some resources. There's a like button that actually works.
It actually works. Can I say though, I'm glad that grok is an acronym because I'm seeing it spelt out there in words, and I work here, and I can't tell you what that says or what that means.
Yeah. And then we had the discussion about grok queries. Is that redundant?
Yes.
Or
I still don't feel right typing it out.
Yeah. I like taking money out of the ATM machine, right?
Yes. All of those.
So there's kind of like a thing, and if you go back and look at the CSS again, we notice like there's stuff happening in this URL bar, right? And we can even kind of like click this permalink and kind of like single out a specific definition, and you can see that there's stuff happening here. There's kind of like this slug, and there's kind of like a unique thing here going on, and we haven't made any navigation affordances for this, but you can also go here and you can see all the kind of like specific acronyms, but with different definitions. So there's kind of like a parent-child hierarchy thing going on that we can express with URLs, which is...
And I'm guessing that's all like it's algorithmic, right? You're not... I'm guessing in your Sanity structure, you don't have like a Cascading Style Sheets page, which has a slug, which is CSS/Cascading Style Sheets.
Yeah. Let's actually take a look at... oh, do I have two servers going on? Oh, that can be. Let's see. Maybe I should clean up a bit.
It's a very clever and useful resource, though, I must say.
Yeah. I'm still not sure if it should be kind of like jokes or actual serious or both. Probably both. You can see both here in this view. But let's take a look at the studio for a bit so we can understand what's going on. So this is kind of like ad hoc content modeling. So kind of like the content type names might not make so much sense, maybe, but bear with us. So this is these are terms. For some reason, we call them terms. And if you go to
naming schemas is the worst.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's difficult.
But yeah, we have terms. And then we have kind of like a slug. So this is the one you have. That's kind of like the top level slug. Then we have definitions and some ways of kind of like hiding the thing. Some kind of like publishing control, if you will. And it's in the definitions things start to get a bit complex, maybe, but it kind of works. So yeah. So if you go into this, we have something called explainer. So here you can actually single out all the letters in the acronym, and you have this term again, some redundant naming, I guess, and then the letter. And then you can also refer to another top-level term, because sometimes there is an acronym within the acronym. kind
Oh,
of.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Nested acronyms.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see the letter there, because my mind immediately goes to the ways you could turn this into a joke. And yeah, this means you could run a query where, given the page CSS, find me every definition, or find me every explainer that has a C and an S and an S. So you could click into an actual acronym, but then get fake explanations based on the P in API and the A in ARPANET, and yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's structured content. It's kind of like it leaves open so many opportunities for useful things and for silly things. So it's interesting to see what we can do with this, right?
Yeah.
And then there's kind of like another slug, and then there's this description, suggested by, likes, and also kind of like some publishing control, because we want to make it possible to suggest definitions and so on, like an urban dictionary situation, and then you don't want to necessarily enable it like
Yes.
Yeah. Just knowing humans, right?
User-generated content.
Yeah. So that's basically it. And then there's then there's this suggested by, which is a reference to another person document. And now I can just do this to see how it looks. And that's pretty simple.
I'm thinking about this during the week too, that this is another one of those things, like if you only just got into web development, you don't know any better. There's somebody this week signed up for Sanity, and they didn't know the old way. Somebody's first experience with Sanity has references in place, and they don't know what we've seen and what we've been through in the old times. And I hope there's some appreciation for just how amazing that is now.
This is so many times this week I just finally I can create a new reference from the reference field.
I think it still surprises me every time. It's kind of like when you first get into drinking coffee or something. Like, it's just every time it opens up in a new page. Oh wow.
I wonder when is the point we just take it for granted, like
probably next week.
Yeah, next week. Right, so that's the data. It's pretty simple. You can also look at the actual data. So if you run a raw query, so it's kind of like this shape. There's the term, there's a slug, the definition is here, there's some portable text going on. It's fairly not that much stuff that goes on here. So let's look at Remix and front-end code. I think I will do this. It's even responsive. And I will probably blow this up a bit because it's pretty small. Is that legible or readable, or?
I think so. If you can hide your file menu.
Yeah, but I was thinking we should actually look at the.
Oh, you want to look at the file
structure? Yeah.
Sorry. You backseat driver.
So let's see. So this is kind of like a monorepo thing. There's a studio. We're not going to dive into that today. And there's the Remix app. So it has some different things. It probably has more things than your kind of like freshly made Remix folder. The onboarding for Remix is pretty interesting because it's pretty good. It has this fancy animation, but you also get kind of like an option to choose where you should deploy it. So maybe we can start there, because you talked about this being kind of like a server rendered thing. Does that mean we have to to buy yourself like a digital ocean.
Bluehost.
Yeah, Bluehost. Don't get me started on Bluehost.
Somebody got Remix on cPanel yet?
Send us screenshots. So you don't have to set up Apache and be a sysadmin again, or for the first time. You can deploy Remix on Netlify, which we have done, and Vercel and all the hosts that offer I guess serverless functions, because as you said, like you can run Remix on serverless functions. We can also run it on an actual server. I think you do that, right? On Fly.
Mine's on fly.io, which I'll admit at this moment, and I admitted to them today in the Remix Discord, I don't know how it works or why, but it's very fast and it's very easy to get started. But yeah, it hosts your app at the edge or something.
I looked into Fly. I think it's actually just an abstraction on Heroku, because there's some Heroku smell.
It's supposed to, as I can work out, is it a Heroku replacement or a superset of features or a constrained set of features?
Because they had kind of like a Heroku APIs underneath or something. But yeah, and
they have a very nice website. That's also why I went with them.
It's awesome, and that gives you kind of like a quote unquote persistent server environment, if you pay for it at least.
Yes.
So it's always ready. While if you deploy this on Netlify, it like Remix is kind of like has enough. I don't like to call it magic because it's someone's hard work, but it can kind of like take those processes or functions that we run on a server. It can kind of translate that to serverless functions. So for you as a developer, it feels kind of like the same. It's kind of like doesn't matter. There's probably some particular performance characteristics, blah blah blah, but in practical terms, it's kind of like the same, which is cool.
It does put some things back onto you to consider, and I've only shipped like my blog to Remix, so it's not like a high impact site. But you do have to start thinking about API requests or bandwidth, these sorts of things again, which you wouldn't with a static site. But then, like, it was really refreshing to, just like I used to with WordPress, like throw the site behind Cloudflare, and that can just eat most of the bandwidth. So that felt like really refreshing and old school, because Cloudflare is just not an option like to throw on top of Vercel or on top of Netlify. So it's just, it's nice to be able to be presented with a situation that I'm not quite sure how to handle. Oh, wait, it's how I handled it 4 years ago, to alleviate stress on WordPress servers. So it's cool.
Yeah, and I might have the wrong impression, but I think also Remix does some caching things to help you out of the box, maybe. Tell us.
I don't work there, but it's very cool, and it's very different, but very familiar. So
yeah. Oh, I've been active in 1 hour. So that's kind of like, and that's why you in this case see a Netlify TOML thing, and this is just generated for you, and you can see that it kind of like maps to functions and so on. There's some here we go. There's some headers, some cache control. So it kind of like it sets some caching up for you, I think. It wants
because it's like browser caching and that sort of stuff, and that's a big heavy thing. If you haven't watched, I think it might be Ryan that does a video. He does like this walkthrough with emojis on browser caching, and it's amazing. It's stuff that everybody who's making websites should know, but just like none of us bothered to learn it. We just preferred to have 12-minute build times instead. It felt easier.
So let's dive into the app. So it's fairly similar to what you have with kind of like Next or Gatsby. It's kind of like file based. Yeah, Gatsby has file based routing now as well, right?
I think it does too,
so you have kind of this routes like or SvelteKit or Next, whatever. So kind of like the shape of the files and folders inside of this routes folder will kind of like decide how the URL structure is. And there are ways to do dynamic things, and with Remix is particularly awesome on nested routes, nested dynamic routes. I think it's the best I've been kind of like. It's better than Next in some ways. I just anticipate Next will catch up soon, but yeah. I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's the feature I wish I had used, because I haven't had a real good reason to get into it. But yeah, at the moment with Next, you've got that get static props, and you have to feed your entire page's query. You have to like force this mega query through there, because there's one point of entry for static data, and everything else is client side. So it is cool to be able to break that into smaller parts.
Yeah, and if you want to kind of like have this. Like we have done on this site, kind of like dynamic segments down the line. That's harder, I think, to achieve with something like Next. And I think there's some kind of like actual limitations to how far you can take it.
Because like your little like counter there, is that nested all the way down, that like you are doing the query and updating it just inside of that like counter?
We'll actually look
Next
at that.
You'd have to run the query back at the top and then come back in again.
We'll actually look at how that works. It's kind of neat, actually. But like if you see this $sign here, that means that this is a dynamic slug. So that makes kind of like this term a variable that's available for you inside of the function, the page or template function. And here we go, like, and the dot in this case is a slash. So this will be term/slug. So that is kind of like the
that's clever.
Yeah, that's kind of like the CSS and then / Cascading Style Sheets. And I have one more, which is term/slug definition, which is this 3-level nested thing, which is the permalink. Oh, there you go.
Womp womp.
Because I stopped the server, I think. See, remix.
Live demo.
Yeah, let's see if this works. There we go. Yeah.
Never in doubt.
So this has this like unique ID thing here. So that's kind of 3 levels of 3 segments, which is expressed through this convention. And then we also have we can take that later. So that's kind of like the rãøüting. Sorry, Norwegian.
I think I said routing just because
routing. Yeah, that's the one.
It's the American way, but I for that particular
router
word,
is that more like the
router, the workbench?
Yeah. Routing, yeah. Rooting. And then like I'm not sure if we should start inside of one of these or start with the root or route.
Well, that one's root.
It's root.
It's as good a place as any. I mean, what are we going to follow the code all the way down?
Because there's a lot of things.
Tell us a story.
Yeah. Let's start with the actual kind of like page layout thing. Yeah, so this is kind of like your typical React function markup, JSX. We have some Tailwind going on.
Lovely.
And then we pass in the children. So this code will kind of like wrap around all the content that you have in those routes. And that's basically it. It's kind of like it's the underscore document thing, or underscore app in Next.
Layout.js.
Yeah. And then we have this. Oh, there's a document thing as well. So that's another wrapper, I guess, where we have some special remix or React router things.
You don't have to say it that way just because I do.
Yeah.
The scroll restoration is very clever though. Like they've gone to the length of writing to local storage your percentage, like your pixel scroll down the page. Like it's a very nice thing that they have done.
Yeah, and we actually found a bug in it.
Yes.
And it was fixed. And then we have the library reload thing, which is pretty nice when you are on local. Like Remix, like it builds the code super fast. It's kind of like neat to work with. And then we have this. Yeah, we have catch boundaries. So if something goes wrong, you can kind of like customize that stuff.
Yeah.
Error boundary. Yeah.
You could see there in that catch boundary there before too that a lot of talk around Remix is like getting web fundamentals. So you're handling 404s, you're handling status codes, you're handling server responses, and that things like fetch is not just a function in JavaScript or something you have to install with like node fetch. Like fetch is based on requests, and browsers handle requests, and that so much of this is just dealing with native APIs is really, really cool.
Yeah, and you can kind of use the MDN docs, kind of, which is also nice.
With form validation, I looked at that the other day, and they're like, look at MDN. Okay.
Yeah,
and you can do validation and input types and stuff. Yeah.
And then it doesn't come with kind of like a Webpack thing with all the styling and so on. That is something you add on next to Remix, like the olden days, which is kind of nice. But they have kind of like instructions to how to add something like Tailwind, which we have done. And then you can also, it likes to have the CSS files. It seems like, again,
like it can cache them.
Yeah,
because it's the web. It's interesting with Tailwind though, especially, and I know like we'll get into that, but like that, I felt like this was an anti-pattern when I was starting with Remix. I'm like, no, I want to have like some sort of ES build config, to set up post CSS or something. But then I've seen the Tailwind team say that doing this via the CLI is how they want you to do it. That's going to be the recommended way going forward. And just today they released like like a nodeless version of Tailwind CLI. Like generating a CSS file from the CLI is the way to do it, which is pretty. That's a big diversion too, and it's pretty interesting.
There we go. Because of Rails 7, I guess. And apropos Rails, like that has been a conversation amongst kind of like the more, I guess, seasoned front enders and web devs in kind of like the JavaScript space, that like we want something like Rails because we felt efficient and so on. And I've heard that people like, Remix feels kind of like Rails again. It's maybe the golden egg of JavaScript frameworks. Let's see. But if you go into package.json, we can see here how that Tailwind thing works. It runs this, I guess, node process in this case, but kind of like it runs this Tailwind process, and it just compiles the CSS and puts it into a folder, and that's the compiled file we are using for this front end, basically. And we run these processes concurrently in dev mode. That's basically it. Pretty simple. So that's nice. This was my first real Tailwind project.
I've been waiting for you to get into this.
But I can come back to that. Mixed feelings, to say the least. So and here you can see the compiled. No, this is the compiled CSS file. Maybe we should have put that into styles. Like a lot of this is just work in progress and not super neat and pretty and so on. But let's go into the index file. This is kind of like the page we are looking at here. Just list with the enormous type for some reason, because we are cool. I don't know. And what's going on here? So we have this meta function. This is a bit like, this is where you have TypeScript. It might look confusing if you're used to JavaScript, but this colon meta function, this is kind of like just typing this variable. It tells you something about the shape it will return, right?
Yeah, what props should be returned from this function.
Here you can see how that looks like, kind of. And this is the way we can set meta fields. So you don't have to type out the tags, but you can have kind of like a shortcut by this object.
Yeah, and it's worth saying here that every route in Remix has these predictable functions here. So you've got a route file and you export a meta, and a loader and the function itself. So Remix knows if I'm loading this route, I should load these meta tags, and it's kind of nice to have like some conventions there, kind of like your get static paths or get static props, this sort of thing, but just a few more granular, very web specific functions there.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like this has started to become an actual pattern you see across like these frameworks. Just export this function with this particular name. It will have these parameters, and you can do some like magic stuff for you. So this meta thing is one of them. So that's called also protected name then in this particular file. You can't like if you make your own meta thing for another function, that will mess up the thing. And the same is with this loader function, which is the, I guess, get static or server-side props equivalent if you look at next. This is the thing that can load data on request and pass that down to the page template function.
And it has access to like any dynamic variables as well. So like your $sign things come in here, and then you can pump that into the query itself.
Yeah, so we will look at how that works. But in this case, it just runs this GROQ query, which is here
to the Sanity API.
Yeah, and it's basically fetching all the terms that's not excluded, and it's ordering them by the letter. That's it. No, and it fetches the whole document, obviously. So maybe I could constrain this in a projection so I don't fetch that much data, because like a little detour on that note. It's interesting because what Remix will do actually is to, let's view source actually. So Remix will actually build the HTML structure. Like it will work without JavaScript enabled in the browser, which is pretty awesome. Like it builds out all the wonderful semantic HTML that's easily legible in this case.
It's not just a shell of HTML that then has a bunch of JSON injected into it by 80 kilobytes of JavaScript.
Yeah. That being said, it does that as well if there's JavaScript enabled. But that is kind of like the foundation, and then it loads in the JavaScript and rehydrates with React, and then it also embeds all the data you're fetching into the same document. So this is all the JSON that I'm fetching in the grok query. That's why I'm saying maybe I should use a production to constrain it. And let's try that actually. So because we are using TypeScript, I can kind of like get a sense of what data I'm using if I've actually used TypeScript. So, this is this became more difficult than I anticipated. Because I've cheated, I think. No. I know there's index data, so there's name and URL in acronyms. So I think in theory, I should be able to do this. And that should work. No, it didn't. There's a undefined somewhere. Let's see. It's probably because of the definitions.
Have you got letter on there something? Yeah.
This is fun.
I'm looking forward to a future where your grok query and your TypeScript look at each other.
So let's see. Index entries, index, acronym index. Oh yeah, it does a lot of things here. So it takes acronyms, term. Maybe it's something with a term. And this is where I regret kind of like, oh, there we go. Maybe name isn't I'll just keep that. But let's see if This gets better. Oh yeah, I have to line wrap. No, it didn't.
Huh. It must just be out of date, surely.
Let's see. It should be less.
How can it know more?
Oh no, it's because of the definitions.
That's all your portable text.
Yeah. So I have no idea what we are looking for inside of this, but yeah, I guess you just have to trust me.
No, it's a good point though, because
yeah.
by default, when you fetch a document from Sanity, you're just going to get all of the JSON of the whole thing, and you might not need all of that.
Exactly.
And it feels like zero cost, but there's real world consequences to overfetching data.
That being said, I've run this site through PageSpeed, and it has kind of like 199 on mobile, so it's not bad, but kind of like something to watch out for. And like when it's kind of like this text inside of the HTML, it kind of like, it has compression and all of that. So I think it needs to be substantial before you might kind of like notice it. But it's a good thing to know about.
It's like a hygiene, code cleanliness sort of thing. It's good practice.
So we're doing kind of like some reducing and stuff to kind of like make this list, index list, and so on. By the way, everything here is open source. If you go to our GitHub, Sanity GitHub, you find Acronym.dev. You can kind of check this out. So yeah, but that's kind of like index, and and the way to kind of like access this loader data, by the way, it's not like Next where we get that as props to the page template. You're using this hook, use loader data hook, and then you get the data. And for some reason, this isn't async. It seems like that's kind of like how hooks work, I guess. So it will be just available for you.
Must be something about that server-side compilation, though.
Yeah, probably.
Because you don't have loading spinners, so it must wait until it has data before it ever tries to execute this function.
Yeah, which is also a point. Like, make sure this thing is fast.
Yes. Yeah. Which keeping that query small will help.
Yeah. So if you're using Sanity, hit the CDN.
Yes. Use CDN. True.
Yeah. We have Kent in the chat room. The component isn't rendered until the loader data. Yeah.
I guessed.
So
right.
performance gains to be had. Right. It's good to have Kent in the chat room, because then he can arrest us when we are going to say something wrong.
Now there's pressure to actually be right.
Yeah.
Literally 2 people who've used Remix once.
This is a learning environment. Yeah. This is how to misinterpret what it does, right? Let's dive into terms. So term that is kind of like this level. No, it doesn't work. It's us, not you. It's probably because I messed up with the thing. No, that can be true. Right? Because those files shouldn't have anything to let versus const. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care about let. I use both in this, like const by habit, and let because I want to aspire to the remix culture.
Somebody just wrote an ESLint rule that we all have to subscribe to, and we have no option to change it.
Yeah. Why doesn't it work suddenly? I'm tempted to do the old. I changed something. Let git reset hard. Just to
YOLO.
There we go.
We're back.
Yeah. Again, loader. Here we have the params because we are passing in this slug. So that gets we can access that through these params, and then use them in this grok query, where we also filter by slug. But that is like if you're built with Sanity, you're probably used to that pattern.
Take a request and feed it straight into the query. That's for the page that you're looking at. It's personalization, internationalization.
Yeah. So Ken says they rewrote the docs to use const, which makes me actually more team let. Like, yeah, let people use let t-shirt.
Some spicy marketing though. I gotta hand it to them.
Yeah. Maybe they should actually just make the docs dynamic. So like every other week, it would just change to the other.
Well, it's a perfect A/B test personalization thing, right? Like I prefer const, and then just have that flow through the docs. That'd be an excellent use of portable text, Canute, to have a dynamic inline annotation, which would be display let or const based on your cookie or local storage.
Yeah, and on April 1st, you can use var, I guess, just to piss everyone off. Yeah. So so we have this dynamic query. Again, we use loader data to get it inside of the page template. We do a lot of array handling, like JavaScript stuff, sorting, and so on. And then we have an actual component that renders these cards. And we have a lot of Tailwind stuff that makes this look kind of okay and fun. And that's pretty much it. But I wanted to dive into the like button. And I realized that this code isn't super kind of like didactic. It's not super obvious once you look at it. But another cool thing with Remix is form handling and how it borrows that kind of like old server thinking. So we have like this like button is a form. So let's look at that first. And this is where I don't feel super confident as a kind of like former front-end developer, now turned DevRel manager. It has been a while I've actually done proper form handling, but here we go. So we have this form component in Remix. I think it translates to just your run-of-the-mill HTML form. But this lets, I guess, Remix kind of like do some special stuff. And this is refreshing. What you basically put in this form, you have a method which will kind of like describe how, when you submit this, how it will do the request to the server. That's also in Remix, right? And then you have inputs, and that's pretty much it. And then I see this could be a type submit. I think just of React habit, I've done a on click. Shame on me. Which it is. There's probably a better way.
So you're incrementing the likes as soon as it's clicked, not when the response comes back from the server.
Yes. Yeah. And that, like, I guess I could have done it. I'll wait for the server to return the actual likes, because other people could have been liking while you were liking. But this again, just me being used to like habits, I guess. So I put a bit of state.
Is that like hyper optimistic UI?
Yeah.
Just set it before you even send the request. Just go for it.
I know what's going on. Like, let's do it, and
it's
then
gonna
deal with it. Yeah. So there's certainly a better way to handle this, but use transition. Yeah. So what's cool with form handling, like
Kent, my implementation of this in Remix uses optimistic UI from the transition.
Yeah. But we learn use transition is awesome. I think I that was one of the last things I did. I discovered use transition, and I used that to disable the button while the
that's good. Yeah,
the action is going, because if you don't prevent that, you can just send off a bunch of clicks, and it can be rate limited and all of that stuff.
Spam again, the API.
Yeah, again, as you said, kind of like it forces you to think like sensible about your application and handle those states that you should handle. That it's easy to forget in other frameworks if you're not if you don't know what you're doing. And then also I use this to have this wiggle. I'm not sure if that works now. No, it doesn't work for some reason. The animate wiggle animation, but yeah, that's another stream.
It's just excellent that they shipped a framework with form handling, because
yeah,
if you're building a website, chances are you're going to submit a form. Like at some point, a form is going. You are going to open that form tag, and you're going to have a submission. So why React has been so agnostic on that? It's a library or whatever. It's a framework, whatever. But it's just that you're building a website. You're going to submit a form. So it's great. That's part of the whole deal.
And it's maybe not intuitive that a like button should be a form. Like 2 weeks ago, I would probably use kind of like use effect, do the patching inside of use effect and all of that stuff.
Yeah, to grab rat query or something. Yeah.
Yeah. But what's nice is that this is kind of like maybe I should just have the actual functionality inside of this file, but I have kind of like isolated the actual functionality of the like button. And I will come back to how this ties into how Remix works in a bit. But like when you push the like button, it will submit that form to the site you are on, because it didn't have kind of like any path to kind of like another page to confirm your like. That would be too much friction, right? So it runs this function. It passes on the key and ID via the inputs, the hidden inputs, and then does a kind of like a sanity patch. So it takes the document of that definition or that term, and then it looks into the array of definitions. So if you remember, and this is where sanity is pretty cool, I think. So you had this array of definitions, and you can like the different definitions, right? So since it has the key of every definition, it kind of like it finds that array item. It takes the likes property in that array item and increments that by 1, which is pretty neat. Like you just patched an array item inside of JSON without having to recreate the whole object and all of that. You just pointed at the thing and you incremented that. Then you commit the transaction. You can do loads of things inside of here, and that's it. And there's some like there's some lazy error handling, and it just returns nil because why not? But to your point, we could return a new document after this patch, and with the new likes count, and then also update the like button with that, right?
Yeah, because Remix will rerun the page's query after a form submission, won't it? So ideally, will a sanity CDN have been flushed in that time?
Probably not.
Probably not. So maybe there'd be some way to say, I mean, if it was mission critical, right, there'd be a way to say if it's being reloaded, there must be a hook from Remix to say this page is being refreshed because of a form submission. Yeah. So then use the API instead of the CDN. So that then you would always like first view of the page hits the CDN, but then like a form submission refresh hits the API. So there'd be a way to do it. Yeah.
So that's kind of like, that's the mechanic. Like that's how we update Content Lake with new likes. And then how is this glued together, and how does this button work across these different routes? And that's interesting. And this is where I haven't done it super. So in this file, actually, we import that function we just looked at. And then we have this action function that we export. And that's the same breed of functions that we have with loader and meta.
As predictably named functions that a rat can have.
Yeah. So if this route is receiving something from this remix form, it will try and run this action function. It has the request, so you can get to the data that came with that form. Then you can do things with that data, and you can return things.
And this, I know I've already said this a few times, but like that .form data, like that's the native web API, isn't it? And like your form data.get method, like these are things that your browser has been doing all along, and you just didn't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat, because what we can do then in these other routes is to just I haven't done it. Yeah. This I've done this in another branch. But if I can actually make this code simpler, because now I'm not dry. I'm repeating the same code all over again, right? So because we are exporting this action, we can do something like this. Export default as action from term, which is pretty neat.
Think of that. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
So we're basically saying take that action we export from term and export it from here as well.
It's like you're following a reference
and whistles. Yeah. That's a pretty neat pattern. It might be kind of like hard to follow if you come into this project, like what's happening here. So maybe you should explain it.
Yeah.
Import. I try Copilot. Sometimes Copilot.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that what that's doing?
Yeah. But yeah. So you can do that kind of like you can do that across these routes. Then this is redundant. And I guess you can do that with loader too, if you plan to just load the same things.
Reuse the same thing,
yeah. So that's kind of like neat. Hope that was possible to follow. But yeah. So we have talked about loading data from external sources. We have talked about kind of like the routing structure and overall how it works. Forms. I've started kind of like a suggestion form here. Not finished with it. And here you can see a bit more of the error handling, because like you have this action data, you can receive errors from it. Then you can kind of like just make default HTML for validation stuff. It's pretty neat.
You just put like required or like input email on fields, and it just works. Yeah.
So I think I'm a Remix fan. It's pretty well done. So yeah. So I think you're exporting default from term, but you should actually exporting the action from term. Export action. Oh, I think I did that. Oh yeah, you're right. It should be like this. It worked though. I can't have. Probably dreamt it. Yeah. Point. There you go. Thanks, Kent from the chat room. Kent is the, I guess, developer relations for Remix now.
I think that's his title. Yeah.
Personally, I thought I would put that.
And who is lovely.
Yeah.
I got to meet him in person.
Right. So Kent says that he would put that action thing in his own file. I completely agree. I also kind of like thought about just putting it into the like button component, so you have kind of like a single component thing going on. We don't want to encourage importing from actions, importing from routes. Yeah, I think that makes sense. This was kind of like just me discovering something. But yeah, it's like sometimes it feels a bit kind of like wrong. Importing from routes feels a bit wrong. It feels like a slippery slope. So
hey, totally the functions agree. Are just there.
Yeah. So let's take a look at another thing, because now we have looked at kind of like rendering HTML sites, pages. But Remix got other things as well. It gets kind of like these resource routes. And again, it's kind of like the web API. It's there for a reason. So this is.
I like that their doc says something like along the lines of that they're not API routes, but that's what you searched for. So that's they have to call it names like that. And that's totally how I ended up there, because I was looking for that thing. It's like, no, it's just a route, but you call it an API route.
Because if you look at this page, we have this, want to use the API instead, send a grok query to this one. Because I wanted to make it possible to kind of like use this API for your own. Like if you want to make an acronym, whatever, you can do that. So I made this thing where you can pass a Grok query. It's not super legible, but like in this is the same way Sanity works. It just adds the query to a kind of like a URL param, and then it returns data. So this is the data for that page we just looked at. And I wanted to make kind of like a proxy, because then we can have kind of like this neat acronym.dev /resources/API. And I couldn't have /API because that would be an acronym. So I had kind of like namespace collision there. So I have to have this resources, because I know kind of resources will never be an acronym, right? So that kind of works. So, and the only thing it does is to export this loader function. So it's the same thing. It actually checks if you are doing a get. Maybe we could check for a get or a post, because technically you can do post request with Grok as well. And then it does this thing, like it takes the request URL, so it looks at the URL you passed. This is just web API, and then it gets the queue, which is your value for the query we are passing in. And then it goes to Sanity and fetches that query, and it stringifies the data and returns that as a new response. Again, just web API, right? And sends it as JSON.
You're telling the browser that it's JSON, yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. That's how you kind of like make your own API.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And if I wanted, like, a good reason for us to do it, like we could just hand it out the project ID, right? And that like made a course thing that just made everyone able to query it. But this way you can actually move the project and have a persistent API and so on. So
if you're doing this at home, it could do with some light sanitization and validation. I'm sure that if somebody goes and submits a 10,000 long character string or something, might cause a problem. But
for your server,
because you can expose all of that, but then you are exposing all of that.
So Sanity would handle that, but maybe your server wouldn't, right? So hot tip here, one thing you can do to make the UI a bit faster is to add prefetch intent to your link elements. Yeah, that's a good point. I found like be a bit intentional with that.
Yeah, I kind of like that was opt-in. I think the reasoning I read from that is that a site with a sufficient number of links might prefetch 50 megabytes of pages unaware, which is not a great experience a lot of ways. So I kind of like how that's opt-in. There's some deliberate choices that you need to be aware of, but you can see why the choices were made. They're sensible, even if it's not all done for you.
Yeah, I would love kind of like a video stream on how to kind of like use prefetching and kind of like gauge those, like when it's actually a performance gain and when it's kind of like a bit dangerous. To kind of navigate those waters would be cool. Another point with the API routes or just routes is like, I think in the documentation they have an example of returning a PDF file, like generating a PDF and returning that. So yeah, it's not just your JSON API. If you want to make an XML API, you can do that totally. Just
who doesn't want to? Finally, I can realize my dream. As somebody who's worked with XML APIs, I don't want to ever have to create an XML API. But it's nice to know that I can.
Exactly. What's cool if we prefetch not only the data but CSS and JS too, which is a good point. Those are excellent candidates for prefetching. Cool. I think we are close to the conclusion, whatever the conclusion is.
I've got to know. I need your spicy hot take on Tailwind, because no one can use Tailwind and just use Tailwind. Everyone's going to have a take on it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I put some hints in already, but I've been kind of on the fence with Tailwind for a while because I'm old and grumpy, and I don't like new things unless they are JavaScript frameworks. I don't know, but yeah, I actually back in the day when I was working as an actual web developer at an agency, we used something called Inuit. Made by the prolific Harry Roberts.
Oh yeah.
He knows he knows his CSS, to say the least.
A bit.
And which is interesting is that Inuit, it was SAS or CAAS.
Oh right.
Remember that. And it had kind of like, coming soon. Yeah, sure. So it had this interesting, pretty similar way of doing things. It was kind of like everything was opt-in. Like you only imported what you needed. And let me see if I can find the actual. Then you had these namespaces. So you have kind of like, it's built on kind of like a BEM thinking. So you had kind of like objects, components, you flooded patterns. And doesn't actually show you the syntax. Let's see. In it CSS syntax. Let's see if we can find it. This is old internet.
Wow, this is not very popular.
Yeah, this is gone. But you had kind of like these ways of expressing things.
But you've been down the road of utility CSS before.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my very far roundabout point. So it was, but so I'm not like I've done it before. I think Tailwind is taking it to the next level because they are like making everything a class. So Inuit were more like it was more mid-level abstractions.
There's still an abstraction, yeah. This just is CSS.
Yeah.
The things you're reading are CSS rules.
Yeah.
Properties.
And that is my hesitation because when you're authoring it, it's pretty neat. Especially if you have like Tailwind IntelliSense installed in VS Code, so you have auto suggestions because you have to actually learn this. And of course, you're using some classes way more than others. So you can you just kind of you will know how to set a margin after 10 minutes. That's fine.
Actually, to undo my point from earlier, I was using Tailwind long before we had that IntelliSense thing. So I just was constantly
you just know it.
refreshing the docs back and forward. Yeah.
You have invested so much time, you can never go back, right?
No, that's right. I'm too bought in at this point to accept it as any other way.
Yeah, but it uses kind of like numbers, so you're not setting pixels. So like things will tend to be a bit consistent. You can also make consistent things, sure, but like you can actually do it right, kind of, which is neat. So when it comes to kind of like
values are just amazing though too.
So when it comes to kind of like the feeling of being productive and just getting something that looks decent pretty fast, that's unquestionable. I get it, right? It's cool. However,
and it's just coming.
If you are the kind of person who kind of likes semantic and structured content and so on, you like to look at HTML and get a sense of what the content is, this isn't great. This is, and I know there's a footnote, but this is not super readable. And if you're new to this project and you come into it, it's like if you look at Tailwind components something, just because you want to copy paste, like though it's kind of like so much stuff. So I think the HTML structure just disappears, and I don't think that's not for me. Then I get grumpy, and then it's hard for outsider to just come in and get a quick sense of how this works. I think Contra just having good old classes and declarations in a CSS file. That's an opinion. However, you can use Tailwind like that as well. You can kind of use BEM syntax and just apply the things in the CSS declarations with Tailwind. So there is a way to do it, I think. But
that does blow up your file size though.
All right. So yeah, trade-offs. I don't know.
You can do it, but you
know.
shouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know how to solve this. But that's my 10 cents. Right.
I've only been using it again this week, and I'd forgotten how much I like it. Tailwind CSS is my favorite design tool. I stopped using Sketch after a while. I design websites in Vite and Tailwind because I feel like I can create at the speed at which I'm thinking. I can ideate and create at the same time with Tailwind.
Yeah.
And you're right. So like that does get you up and going quickly. I do find it though difficult to sort of look at that list of classes there and work out what that means. But again, because it's so quick, what I've done in the past is if I'm coming back to a component I haven't used in a long time, I'll just delete all those classes and just start over, because it's faster to just like delete it, see it with no styles, and rewrite the classes than it is to grok where's the margin, why is it this size, what's the padding. You just rewrite. It's awesome.
Interesting, huh? Yeah. No, I can't argue with kind of like that, like speed and productivity. I wish there was kind of like tell me how to use Tailwind like a bit more diligently. Like tell me how to make more resilient and kind of like friendly component patterns. And I'm sure there are, right?
We do have a Tailwind UI subscription.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I can pay myself into it, and you should probably pay for it, right? But I haven't seen a lot of. There's not a lot of help for you unless you are buying that subscription, I suspect, because I've struggled to find kind of like the good patterns for things. That was what I liked with Inuit, because it kind of like it gave you, this is how kind of like a flag shape should look like and be structured, and all of those patterns. This is a grid. This was before we actually had grids, and so on. So I would like.
Maybe we need that for sanity too, because it feels like a very sanity thing. Is that like they couldn't give you lower lying tools if they tried. Like that it is the sharper set of knives. So you can create a button with whatever classes you like, and with no guidance. You're right. So it'd be nice to see more like best practices. But I think just because everybody wants a button to look different, particularly too, and this has been really good as Tailwind's matured and got more popular. I think there was a hot minute there where every Tailwind site looked like a Tailwind site, where it's getting pushed further. And like the fly.io site is one to me where I'm like, that's really nice. And it was like, it had a hint of Tailwind, and like, it was just enough to think, if I view source, am I going to see 1,000 class names? And sure enough, it is. But yeah, I think that boundary is getting pushed more, which is great, because it's a design system generator with like the most primitive tokens possible. And that's, like customizing your Tailwind config like opens up a whole new level of things. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, and we have some of that as well in this thing, I think. So here we go.
I wish I could show what I was working on. But, it's top secret.
But so this is kind of like, this is my attempt to make kind of like a animation. We have some fun family things. There's not a lot of stuff that goes on here, but yeah, it gives you kind of like the feeling of how it looks. But yeah. And Tailwind 3 just came out, and it made, of course, some controversy. Like, I think the people who have the biggest gripe with Tailwind is like, you are not learning CSS. And I think there's a point to that, but I also think that it's probably kind of like lowering the threshold. It's probably easier to actually be productive and get started, and then you can get to learn the CSS afterwards. I'm like not super opinion. Like, you should learn JavaScript before you learn React. Maybe React is a good way to learn JavaScript down the road. Like, there's so many ways into this stuff that I will abstain from having big opinions about that. But
I think Tailwind empowers you faster, because it's difficult to get. So like to jump on play.tailwind.com, you can instantly start sketching something out, right? And even if you don't understand all of the syntax, at least you're creating something and feeling empowered by it. Then you can go back and work out what all the CSS is. Is it play? Oh, tailwindcss.com. They don't have the tailwind.com. I think that guy's going to get some mucho.
There we go.
But and I've spent time coding with my kids, and we use Tailwind because I I don't know how I want to show them. We need a CSS files over here, and you need to dot note this. But when you call it over here, it doesn't have a dot, and and then there's the whole thing of the cascade where they don't have to learn any of that. Like they can learn that BG red 500 is going to give it a red background. Like that's what they want to achieve right now, and we can talk about going deeper later.
Yeah, and like the Tailwind team. They know what they're doing. It like you have like when you kind of look at Tailwind, you get the feeling it's kind of like properly done. It's thought through.
That they turned it into a business and and that it was I remember like reading Adam saying early on that it's a design system generator, and like it was never just about making CSS classes. It was always the dream was so much bigger, and I love it.
But like everything, like when you have spent years kind of like honing a skill and so on, I think you are entitled to have some opinions about stuff. But yeah, so I can see why one would like Tailwind, and I can see why one would kind of like prefer not to, and both are. I don't think I'm selling out, but both are perfectly acceptable positions. But yeah, don't be a D-word.
Don't make it your whole identity.
Yeah.
The best thing is, and like on all of this stuff, right? Like so, Remix. Like the thing I'm building is back on Tailwind, but I'm using Next because I'm really fast at Next. But all this stuff is like rocket boosters on development. Like there's never been a better time to be into website design. And Tailwind, like learning something like Tailwind, you'll feel a bit slower. Like the adoption curve, the learning curve might be a bit slower, but just like there's so many ways to learn and so many ways to do things like never before. I don't know any jQuery because there wasn't 1,000 like influencers doing free tutorials on YouTube 12 years ago or whatever. So I just refused to learn JavaScript. But now there's so many ways to learn so much and do so much quickly. I get excited to still make websites, which I think is important because of things like Remix, things like Tailwind.
Exactly. And I think Remix brought a lot to the table. I think they kind of like challenged some of the accepted new normals especially in Jamstack world, and I think that's good. It's a good thing. I think like the folks at Next, which they are also like super talented, they totally know what they're doing. They will probably look at Remix and say, oh, this action thing and form thing, that's kind of neat. Maybe we should.
Well, it's going to push them.
Be inspired.
Right?
Yeah. So I very much look forward to 2022 in front-end dev. Yeah. All right. Good stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up, the reason we are here is because we have spent this last week, and it has only been a week, and we already have all of this stuff up and going. Because Netlify is doing this Dusty.domains challenge for charity. To like take that domain name you have been ignoring, it has been weighing on your mind for so long. This is the time to pick it up. Use Remix, use Tailwind, use
Sanity,
and go for it. Yeah. And some awesome organizations will get money from these pretty well-funded companies. So that's good. Take advantage of that. And let us know on Twitter, the Remix Discord, the Sanity Slack community, slack.sanity.io. What you think about Remix and Tailwind and everything, but be nice and kind about it.
Yes.
Right. Excellent stuff.
How do we finish? We wave like a Zoom call.
Thanks everyone for hanging out. See you next time. Right.